Hello Capricorn and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of July 2022. This reading will be for Capricorn Sun, Moon, and Rising. So by all means, if you know your three major placements, you can feel free to listen to any and all of the readings that apply, as each one of them may resonate differently for you. And as always, do keep in mind these readings are general in nature. They're meant to be applicable to a more broad collective of individuals. So with that in mind, not everything is necessarily going to resonate for you. Definitely take anything and everything that does resonate, however that makes sense for your specific situation or whatever that might connect to in your personal circumstances. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful, and just leave the rest. So Capricorn, I hope you're doing well and that your summer is off to a great start. I hope June was good to you. I'm very excited to take a look at July. And as always, before we jump into your oracle and tarot cards, I will kick off the reading by sharing with you the channeled energetic impression and channeled messages that I took time to sit down and connect with before I got your card out. So in terms of what I was picking up on as I was preparing for your reading and like trying to connect to your energy, I just kind of got and the level at which this is a vibe for you, or maybe a vibe for you, is probably going to be different for each and every one of you, but there was a definite sense of like something being difficult, right? So it's like just kind of feeling like, you know, maybe you're up against a challenge, maybe things have been like slightly difficult, like indefinitely, maybe you've been going through a really hard time, but it's kind of like just feeling a little bit of heaviness, feeling a little bit tired and worn out, because things have felt challenging. So you might be feeling a little bit defeated. And I didn't get the sense that you've given up by any means, because there's definitely like still hope there and still desire, but it's kind of like having to acknowledge the fact that like maybe the things that you want are not panning out right now. Maybe you've just been struggling to get to where you need to be or to establish new habits, and so things have felt difficult. So it's like you still have that spark and that motivation, although it may have wavered a little bit, but it's just like, yeah, like things are just kind of, I don't know. And there might even be a sense of things feeling as though they're more difficult than they need to be, or more difficult than they should be. And that might actually be your circumstances. Maybe that's just the place that you're in, because we go through cycles, you know. But it could also be like you being hard on yourself because of where you're at, or maybe what you're feeling or how you're handling your specific situation. And yeah, so it could be that the challenge is just to kind of continue holding the vision, continue connecting with your reason for doing it, so that you can kind of, it's almost like a sense of there's endurance required. Like you're kind of playing the long game. So it's like, even though things maybe haven't come to completion yet, or maybe aren't quite where they need to be, it's keeping your eye on the prize, trying to do whatever you can to just endure the challenge. Try not to be too hard on yourself, because and especially if you like, maybe you're at a peak in terms of things feeling really difficult, it's remembering that like things always change, things can't stay the same forever, and generally it's always darkest before the dawn. So sometimes it's when we're feeling like really worn out, and maybe you've been patient and you've been putting in the effort, and things just haven't quite manifested yet, and you're just starting to get to a breaking point. Usually that means we're kind of on the verge of either learning a new lesson, or kind of closing out an old cycle and moving into something lighter. So just keep that in mind, because I definitely get the sense that your spark is still there, but it might feel a little damp, and it might feel as though that the spark within you is like the only thing lighting your way right now. So it might just kind of feel challenging. And for your channeled messages, the first one that came through was, why does it have to be this way? So you might find yourself questioning your circumstances, your experiences. This could be related to like one person or situation specifically, or it could just be a more general theme. So there's a sense of struggle and feeling like limited or powerless to your struggle, or perhaps powerless to your circumstances. And it's important to keep in mind that it may not even have anything to do with you, right? So it may just be like the way that the cookie crumbles, and perhaps there's something for you to learn from it, but it's not necessarily what you want to be dealing with right now. And so it's like, it's not necessarily as a result of your worth or your value or anything that you are or aren't doing. It's just kind of where you're at right now. The next message that came through was working all day. And there's a kind of a sense of like just being nonstop all day, every day. And that doesn't mean that you don't have time off work or you don't have like weekends or anything like that. But it could just be like, maybe your work days are just like jam packed from start to finish. Maybe you're not taking your breaks, or if you are taking your breaks, perhaps you're not allowing yourself the opportunity to kind of shut off and disconnect. Like if you have like well, depending on what kind of job you have, right? It's kind of like if you are eating lunch at your desk and you're still seeing like emails come through and then you're looking at emails, then it's like you're not really giving yourself that opportunity to disengage. And it could also be that like you're working nonstop, you're putting in like a huge amount of effort and you're being like a very productive and loyal employee, but it might actually be draining you. Like you might kind of be doing more than is sustainable, like over the course of of the like working week. And so you might kind of be depleting yourself repeatedly, and you don't necessarily have enough time in the evenings and on the weekends, or perhaps you're not in a position to really take advantage of the time that you do have to kind of recuperate and pour back into yourself. So you're just kind of depleting more and more every week. So I would say like if you're finding that work or perhaps like something like outside of yourself is taking a lot of your time and energy, and you're pouring everything that you've got into it, and it's feeling, kind of thankless, or you're not necessarily feeling fulfilled, you're starting to feel worn down, and it's kind of leaving you with no energy or no motivation to take care of yourself, do the things that you enjoy, go out and be social, that kind of stuff, then you might need to kind of scale back the effort, because you might be putting in like 150% at work every day when you can get by with 100%, and then you have that extra energy left over, and that's going to give you an overall higher quality of life, which is going to make it easier for you to continue to be the stellar employee that you want to be. So it's kind of like work-life balance, and recognizing that it's important to make sure that you're aware of your energy levels, and each day is going to look different. Like 100% for you is going to look different each and every day based on like the resources that you have and what you're working with. And it's important to keep in mind that you need some of that energy for yourself, because if you continue to kind of pull from your own well of happiness and that's not getting regenerated, then it's like you're gonna start to feel like you're in a major deficit, and that's kind of like when things like illness and major like stress and anxiety can kind of take hold or increase in intensity. And it's like just remembering that you deserve your own time and effort. The next message that came through was for the greater good. So it's kind of like something charitable, wanting to help, feeling as though you need an outlet to help out or to become engaged, perhaps in a community, or maybe by volunteering, something like that. So to feel as though you're helping and supporting others, or you're adding value. And this may not be something that you're aware of, but it might be something that's beneficial to you. It could be something enjoyable, or perhaps to kind of connect you with new people, get you out of your comfort zone, and help you feel good about what you're doing. The next message that came through was orchestrating. So a sense of like planning, executing like a gathering, or bringing people together for like a common goal, or common benefit or enjoyment. So you may find yourself in a position where you're needing to orchestrate things, events, people, or perhaps it might be something that's beneficial to you, especially if that kind of plays into the work-life balance. And maybe if you don't have a lot of social opportunities and it's been a while since you planned or hosted something or tried to get your friends together, then it's like if you're not getting a lot of invitations or you don't have a lot of opportunities, it might be worth orchestrating something yourself and getting people together. And then the last message that came through was outstanding balance. And so that's kind of like, you know, kind of like a financial vibe, right? So it's like an outstanding balance on your credit card. There's a sense of like, you know, something being owed. So perhaps you're in debt. It could be financial debt that's weighing on you, some kind of debt that's weighing on you. Or it could be that someone is in debt to you, or multiple people are in debt to you. And like I said, we have different types of currency. So it could be money, it could be time, attention, you know, friendship, energy, that kind of stuff. So it might be that you've got some relationships that aren't necessarily reciprocal, and you're kind of noticing like, hey, I'm doing more than this person, and maybe there's a need for, you know, communication, or kind of like reining things back in. Or you might have, you know, some kind of outstanding balance, something that needs to be paid, something that needs to be taken care of, that's on your mind, that's highlighted this month. I'm not sure. So we're going to get into your oracle message for this month, which is, it's hard to see with the glare, chop wood. And this is actually an interesting card. Let me see if I can get this to stand up a little bit here. So I will start off by saying I really like this card for you, because it very much is your energy. Like, it is kind of the earth energy, that practical, grounded, taking care of the tangible, most basic day-to-day life things, and like, you know, tending to your responsibilities, cultivating your general stability by tending to everyday types of things. And especially like in the home too. And so this card is actually connected to, I believe it's a Zen proverb, and it's like, what does a person do? What does an unenlightened person do, right? Or what does a person do before they reach enlightenment? And it's chop wood and carry water, tend to their daily tasks, like the things that they need to do for their survival or their comfort. And then what does a person do after achieving like enlightenment? And it's the same thing, chop wood and carry water. So the thing is, it's like, at the most basic practical level, there might not be a difference between an unenlightened person and an enlightened one, or an unhappy person and a happy one, because when you break it down, they're still doing the same basic tasks, like, you know, washing their dishes and changing their sheets and sweeping the floor, that kind of stuff. So it's not what you're doing, but it's how you do it, right? And so the idea is that if you want to become more spiritual, if you want to kind of like release your tension and anxiety, if you want to be, you know, more mindful, more happy, more relaxed in day-to-day life, it's kind of like you have to treat the day-to-day mundane, boring tasks that are basically just essential to our well-being and our survival. You have to approach those in kind of like a meditative capacity, and see them not only as a mundane task that needs to be completed, or a chore that perhaps is, you know, not particularly enjoyable, that you might want to avoid and that you just have to do, but it's approaching it as like just another opportunity to be in the present moment, and to kind of cultivate your awareness, cultivate your mindfulness, and try and almost do these kinds of chores meditatively, right? So that you're actively bringing your awareness into the present moment. You're actively experiencing whatever you're doing, regardless of how mundane it is, instead of doing the mundane chores that you don't want to do and thinking about all the other stuff you'd rather be doing, or how this is just a waste of your time, or it's something that's like getting in the way of your enjoyment or your progress. So it's kind of like what's going on in your mind is ultimately what impacts your experience of life, because you could be chopping wood and carrying water, doing chores, and you could be absolutely miserable because you feel like this is just the worst, right? Or you could be completely content and peaceful and just relaxed, right? So it has everything to do with your attitude. It has everything to do with where you place your attention and awareness, what you're thinking, right? And so if you're already familiar with meditation, it might be helpful to take the cues or the aspects of the practice that you resonate with and try applying that into your day-to-day tasks, because I think ultimately that's kind of the goal of meditation, is to kind of quiet the mind in such a way that you can bring a meditative self-aware kind of quality into your daily life and the things that you do. And it's just kind of taking your stress and anxiety and your overactive mind out of it and allowing yourself just to be present and enjoy things as they are. And so that's kind of like the only difference between somebody who's happy and calm and somebody who's not. And so it's like, don't overlook those very simple, boring, mundane tasks, because they provide you a perfect opportunity to start kind of practicing and working toward mastering that kind of awareness, right? And perhaps cultivating a more peaceful attitude, especially if you find that you're kind of focused on the things that you want to achieve or the things that you want to create in your life, or perhaps the areas where you're not particularly satisfied or where things are not necessarily moving forward. It's kind of like taking your mind off of all of that other noise. And this is actually a time not to focus on your big goals and not to focus on the big picture, and not to necessarily like be putting pressure on yourself to, cross items off the list that are going to get you to your manifestation. This is just the really basic day-to-day chores, the mundane things that we think don't really hold much in the way of value. And the idea is, it's like this daily stuff that everybody has to do just to kind of survive. If you can quiet your mind to the point where you can be aware and present and calm and peaceful, then that is exactly the time when your intuition can speak to you. That's exactly the time when, your mind is quiet enough and you've opened up enough space for those aha moments to strike you, right? Whereas if your mind is constantly going and you're constantly thinking of your to-do list and you're constantly kind of like daydreaming, projecting yourself into the future, thinking about your goals, thinking about what you need to do to get there, your mind is so busy and so occupied that your kind of higher wisdom doesn't necessarily get a chance to come through, because they say that like intuition whispers, right? And that intuition, those intuitive nudges, those aha moments, those moments of clarity and realization that can only come when we're just kind of being calm and present and quieting our minds, those are the very things that help get us closer to our end goal, right? And that help things to kind of fall into place. So it's like your effort in a very tangible physical sense might be doing laundry, doing dishes, vacuuming, scrubbing the floor, like the toilet, whatever, like changing the cat litter. That could be what you're doing in a practical sense. But like I said, if you're cultivating that present moment awareness and you're calming your mind, you're allowing yourself to disconnect from your goals and your dreams, disconnect from the desire that is driving you to take action on whatever you want to manifest. And so sometimes not taking action on the things that we're trying to create or to manifest actually allows us to connect with inspiration or a new perspective that's going to help us make leaps and bounds toward our goal. So just because you're putting in work to get to an end goal doesn't mean you're doing it efficiently, and it doesn't mean that you're necessarily like getting ahead in the most effective way, right? So sometimes taking a break, disconnecting from that big picture and just tending to your day-to-day tasks in a mindful way can help you get clarity that's going to set you leaps and bounds ahead. So over the course of the month, you might be taking a break from these big things that you put pressure on yourself to kind of work toward and to achieve. But at the end of the month, if you're able to kind of be in this more like mindful, meditative place while you're doing your day-to-day stuff, by the end of the month, you might find that you've actually made more progress than you have been in previous months, with a busy mind and a sustained effort toward your goals, right? Because this is talking about how, for example, gardening, right? if you want to have a beautiful garden that will be in full bloom and healthy that you can enjoy, it's like, it's recognizing that there's a whole lot of pretty boring, unglamorous steps to get there. And it takes slow, sustained, consistent effort to focus on the things that need to be done to just kind of tend that garden so that you can eventually enjoy it one day. And so it's like the more that you can kind of find joy and peace in that kind of day-to-day life and the more practical aspects, the more likely you are to be able to benefit when things start to move forward. So I think that's really promising. It's kind of like, give yourself a break, put things on ice, and literally just allow yourself to focus on the kind of boring day-to-day stuff, especially if you have a resistance to it, especially if it's just another thing that drains you. It's really saying like, now is the opportunity. Now there's the opportunity for you to kind of find a new perspective, cultivate a new attitude, and almost be renewed by those things that, you know, you would normally see as just chores and things that are taking your time and energy away from the things that you really want to be doing. So this month I've been trying to pull less cards because it was my intention to make the readings shorter, because I wanted to have the time and energy to do like a mid-month or late month check-in and get like kind of an update for you guys, which I may or may not do. The readings have still ended up being pretty long. So it's just really funny to me how it doesn't seem to matter. I'll draw like half the cards that I usually draw, and I still seem to talk forever. So it's like there's still a base level of information that needs to come through. So we'll see how that pans out. But I'm doing 2 cards for you. So I'm going to get the clarifiers. Your first card is the 8 of Wands. Oops, sorry, I thought I flung that out. First card is the 8 of Wands. Second is the 10 of Wands. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Hermit. So I'm going to clarify these and then we'll get a read on that energy. Okay, let's clarify the 8 of Wands first. Yeah, but especially if you guys have been getting in your own head or overthinking, overanalyzing, stressing yourselves out, this could be like asking you to take a step back and just kind of focus on the things that are simple in your life and to try and channel that simple kind of physical element into a simplified state of mind. Okay, so we're going to clarify the 10 of Wands. 8 of Wands is clarified by death. And we'll clarify the 10 of Wands. Okay, so the death card is Scorpio energy. So I don't know if that is familiar to you, if you have connection to Scorpio. Also, the Hermit at the bottom of the deck, that is Virgo energy. If you're into astrology, if that makes sense to you. 10 of Wands is clarified by the Knight of Wands. And then bottom of the deck is the 4 of Cups. Okay. So the Hermit is earth energy. Hermit is also kind of self-explanatory, like perhaps being a little bit introverted, being a little bit removed from friends, family, groups, communities. You may be feeling, so this is the past energy, like that's underlying this month's kind of progression. And so this can be like feeling like maybe you don't have the energy to go out and to be social and to be more outward focused on the world around you. Perhaps you've been feeling the need to kind of isolate yourself a little bit, maybe feeling a little bit more reflective than usual, trying to just kind of get a handle on yourself and your inner world, or perhaps just feeling worn out and needing that time to kind of shut off and rest and recuperate. But this is all about recognizing that when we allow ourselves the opportunity to kind of disconnect from the world around us, and we're doing so not in an avoidant way where we're just like, you know, maybe trying to trying to avoid the things that make us uncomfortable or whatever the case may be. But it's recognizing that there's a benefit to being in our own energy, to taking that time and to being comfortable being in our own energy and taking that time to reflect on like where we're at, what's important to us, what's going on with us, because that is part of the process of being able to kind of disconnect, quiet your mind and see what's really going on. And that's when you're able to more effectively connect to your inner wisdom and your intuition, and to kind of perhaps have the opportunity to connect with new perspectives, new information, to have those like mountaintop or aha moments where things just kind of fall into place, or you come to a powerful realization about yourself or your situation or what you need to do to kind of move forward. So yeah, you could have been in that energy, but it's really interesting because this is a very empowered energy of being alone and kind of just like, I'm okay on my own and I have my own answers. And if I allow myself to make the most of my alone time and recharge and recognize that the answers aren't outside of myself, then I'm going to be able to light my own path, basically. And it's like have a bigger picture view. But that's coming out hand in hand, and that's a very stable like earth energy too, with it being associated with Virgo. This is like the wise wizard kind of energy. And it's interesting that it's come up and been clarified by the Four of Cups, because the Four of Cups has everything to do with our emotions, how we experience our emotions, how our experience of our emotions shapes our perspective and our connection to the world around us. This can also be connection to intuition. And the Four of Cups is a card of kind of feeling detached, feeling kind of bored, apathetic, disengaged, maybe not particularly motivated, not particularly inspired, not particularly hopeful. It can be a card of kind of maybe feeling a little bit depressed, if that makes sense for you, but it can also just be feeling low and being kind of distracted by the emotions or the experiences that have been perhaps disappointing, maybe the opportunities that we thought were going to be really promising that didn't pan out, or that kind of ended before we were able to get to that point of fulfillment, or perhaps things that we thought would be fulfilling that we actually succeeded in achieving, and that fulfillment was not what we thought it was going to be, or it's run its course and now we're kind of on to the next thing. So this can be a card of just being like, being kind of put off by the experiences you've had to date, especially those that are connected to love. So love, self-love, in terms of romantic relationships, familiar relationships, that's a big energy here. And like opportunities for love and connection and depth and meaning and fulfillment in your life. So yeah, it can be potentially having situations that left a sour taste in your mouth or left you with a little bit of sadness or grief, and maybe feeling worn out and like a little bit jaded, or perhaps uninterested in connecting with opportunities for happiness and fulfillment that are in your kind of orbit right now, because you've been soured by your experiences previously and you might be kind of focused on the past. So there's a sense of like either not being jaded and not being interested in pursuing your happiness or opportunities for happiness that are presented to you, or maybe feeling as though there are no opportunities or there are no worthy opportunities. And it's recognizing that this is not necessarily the case. It's like, it's all about having that cup that could very well present you with all of the love and happiness and fulfillment that you're looking for, or just an opportunity to kind of start moving in that direction and connecting with that energy more. It's there and there's like a lily in it, right? But if you're not looking for it and you're not willing to see it and connect with it, then it doesn't matter that it's there, right? So it's kind of like if you're focused on the past and you're focused on that low energy, you're not necessarily going to be in a place where you see the opportunity. So it's recognizing that it's like those emotions need to be dealt with, and it's recognizing that it's just your perspective right now. So it's not that there's nothing for you, and it's not that you can't connect with fulfillment and abundance. It might just be that you need to do some work to kind of release emotions from past experiences and start looking toward the future with a little bit of hope. And that might be what this kind of isolation and, spending time in your own energy, doing your own work, and trying to connect with your own wisdom to get clarity for yourself, it could be related to that. Because like I said, this is the past energy. Your challenge this month, okay, before I read the cards as a whole, I also want to say that for this month's cards, 3 out of 4 are wands. Wands is fire energy, and that is connected to like passion, enthusiasm, creativity, inspiration, like our energy. It can be connected to like, charisma, excitement. It's like a very, yeah, I want to say volatile, but volatile often has like a really negative connotation. It's volatile in the way that, like, think about how quickly flames can catch and spread. If those flames are passion and creativity and enthusiasm, and you are stoking that creative fire of passion and excitement, it can build and expand really, really quickly and touch multiple areas of your life, and it can kind of multiply really quickly. But also, if it's coming from a place of anger or hostility or aggression, that can also be volatile in the sense that that will take hold. So it's kind of like this creative energy that's like two sides of the same coin. So it can be really beautiful. It can allow us to be very expressive. It can help us to connect with people. It can help us to feel motivated and fulfilled. And if we have the appropriate outlets and we allow ourselves to connect with that energy. But if we deny it and we try to live a life that's too practical, or we don't allow ourselves passion, like passion projects or creative outlets, then that energy is still there. And if it doesn't have an outlet and it's not being recognized, then sometimes it just builds up and it creates like anger and resentment, right? So that's just like the general vibe of this energy. And it's like I said, that little spark within you isn't gone, and that's what's motivating you. But it's like you kind of need to stoke that fire for yourself, especially if you feel like disappointed with how things have been going, or you feel like you're having to light your own path because you're kind of surrounded by darkness. The 8 of Wands is a card of like fast movement. So it is focused, it's inspired, it is strong, but it's fast moving. So it could mean like taking inspired action and like jumping into something and like making it happen. It could be like making a decision really quickly, moving in a certain direction quickly. It can be like a lot of communication coming in, or you communicating. But it's like basically the idea is like whatever this energy is, whatever that passion, whatever that creativity is connected to, it's like there's a lot of forward movement highlighted. And perhaps whatever that is for you and whatever you would take action on could have the potential to be really successful or move forward really quickly, or kind of like transform your life or your situation in a kind of magnified way. And so with this energy, coming up with the death card is all about endings and beginnings. And so it's like we think about death as something that is kind of scary and negative, and there's a lot of kind of terrible connotations around it, but it's like death is just like an ending, right? And it's not just about death, like our death, human death. It's also about like acknowledging the parts of your life that aren't serving you, perhaps the habits that you have that are disempowering, or maybe toxic, maybe unhealthy. Maybe there are habits that you picked up or perspectives that once served you because you were in a situation where you needed that to get by. And now that you've moved on from that situation, that energy, that perception, that habit is actually stunting you, or perhaps it's damaging you in some way. So it's kind of like you may have been progressing and you might have some habits and some things connected to your past that you've outgrown that are actually hindering you instead of helping you. And it's about recognizing the parts of you that need to die, right? And being willing to allow that, because with death comes rebirth, right? So the phoenix can't rise from the ashes if it never burns, right? So And the fact is that like that death and rebirth is just an absolutely incredible opportunity for transformation, right? So it's recognizing that death and rebirth, endings and beginnings, we are transformed, right? So it's like we're related to that old version of ourselves, but we are upgraded, right? And there's the opportunity to connect with something new. So the whole point is that if something has ended, if something is ending, if something needs to end, and we are not acknowledging it or accepting it, or perhaps we're resisting it, it's basically saying like sometimes resistance to discomfort, resistance to endings, resistance to loss, can cause us to just like block our own blessings, block our own growth and development, right? Because we're focused on the ending, we're focused on what we're losing, we're focused on what makes us uncomfortable, and we're not looking ahead to the possibility that lays in front of us, and we're not looking to like the next door that's going to open or the opportunity, right? So it's kind of like your attitude and your perspective on endings could very well be keeping you from moving forward. And it's like you might be backlogged. Like there might be the opportunity to really move forward on something that's going to be meaningful, and that's going to be fulfilling, like on the level of creative inspiration, and like that spark, the things that you just really like, right? The things that you really enjoy, the things that kind of make your life worth living, and that feed your fire, right? So you think about stuff that you really enjoy, it doesn't drain you, right? So it's like you might need to have more of that in your life in order to be able to kind of maintain your momentum, because perhaps you're too focused on things that are not fulfilling, that are not connected to your passion. And so that spark is constantly just a spark, and it's consistently at risk of being smothered. And it's like if you would just connect with that energy and, you know, find an outlet for it or honor it, make more room for it, fan those flames for yourself. It's like you might be surprised how quickly that impacts your life positively, how quickly things move forward, what kinds of doors open, what kind of opportunities come up, and just like how quickly things might transform. But with this coming up as the challenge, it's kind of like there's a lack of movement, there's a lack of moving forward, or some kind of resistance to like, oh, well, maybe that's dangerous, right? Like maybe there's something that you're excited about, but if you were to lean into it and allow things to move forward in a direction that you're excited about, that entails change and uncertainty, and it can be scary. So sometimes the very things that like light us up and feed our fire are also things that we kind of have a difficult time embracing and allowing ourselves to move toward, because we're afraid of what we're going to experience when we step into a new time or season, or when we step into uncertainty and we don't know how things are going to unfold. It can be enough to make us kind of recoil, right? So with this coming up as a challenge, it's like forward movement on passion and creativity, and like fanning those flames and really being able to make that energy expand and work for you and carry you through, so that you've got more of that kind of creative energy to work with. And yeah, embracing when something has run its course, when something needs to end, when you're being asked to transform and to kind of let go of something from the past so that you can make room for something better and something that's going to suit you. And so that'll be different for each and every one of you, but however that resonates, it's like that's your challenge this month. That's what's blocking you from kind of moving in the direction of your highest good. And in order to kind of transcend this energy, to resolve it, to move beyond it, and to move further in the direction of your highest good, you're being encouraged to connect with this 10 of Wands and Knight of Wands energy, which I really love, because the 10 of Wands and Knight of Wands they're kind of like different energies. The 10 of Wands is about being exhausted. Like you've been on a long friggin' road and you've been carrying a lot of baggage. There's been a lot of weight on you and you're absolutely exhausted. And it's like you're at the end of the road, but it's like you can't even take another step. And so this can have to do with just feeling really overburdened. So however you're feeling overburdened, whether it's like work, home, relationships, could be all or any, a combination of anything, whatever that's connected to, it's asking you to realize like you don't have to exist in that state of being perpetually overburdened, right? Especially if you're at the point where it's like you don't have any energy or strength or resources to move forward for yourself, right? And it's basically saying like, you kind of need to take a look at what's weighing you down. What are you carrying? Because there's a good chance that a lot of it not only isn't yours and isn't your responsibility or isn't yours to carry, but it's not serving you. Sometimes the stuff that we hold on to actually just perpetuates, fear and anxiety, and it's not necessarily helping us to start fresh, right? And to focus on that next cycle. And so the 10 is an ending, right? So it's like you're at the end of this road, you've made it this far, you've had all of these experiences and learned these lessons, and this is connected to your passion and creativity or your inspiration, the things that make you excited to be alive. And so it's recognizing that like you cannot possibly go on without lightening your load. So it's like doing an inventory and recognizing that it might be that perhaps you feel like you're the only one that can or will do something, and so you've taken on more than is fair. It might be a need for you to delegate tasks, to have difficult conversations, to recognize like what you're responsible for, and to hold others accountable for pulling their weight. And it could just be like, even like emotionally, energetically, you might be somebody that really absorbs a lot of other people's like feelings or problems or tries to remedy them. And this is very much a card of saying like, you can't exhaust yourself to keep everybody happy and comfortable, because you need that energy to move forward for you, and you deserve to have that energy. So what's weighing you down? What needs to go? And like, that could very possibly be the things that you have the most level of resistance towards, right? Because with death, and like this is like the ultimate ending card. So there might be something like, it could be a relationship that needs to end, a friendship that needs to end, a job that you need to leave, like a house that you need to move out of. It could be a version of yourself that you need to let go of, a negative or like disempowering mindset or belief or habit that you need to let die so that you can connect with something that's going to be more suitable for you. So it's like on a smaller scale, you need to take a look at like, what is it that's weighing you down and how do you free up your energy? And it's being unafraid to advocate for yourself and to put yourself first, and to do what you need for yourself, and to make sure that you're not just this person who's constantly showing up taking on more than is necessary or fair, because that is part of what's dimming your spark and preventing you from kind of continuing along the path of things that are the most meaningful to you on that level. And I love that it comes out with the Knight of Wands, because the Knight of Wands is a very like energetic, charming, charismatic kind of energy. It's very like it's one of the more like aggressive and fast moving energies. So it can be, it also, I associate it with like being really social, right? So this is kind of like the life of the party. It's the person who, is able to connect to and relate to everybody, who kind of lights up the room. People just want to be around. And it's like, it's recognizing that it takes confidence and courage to put yourself out there and to be that person. And it could very well be to examine the ways that you are that person, right? That light that's inside of you. What happens if you fan those flames? What happens if you connect more to your purpose and your excitement and your passion, and you start living that life? How is that going to change the way that you show up with friends and family, with significant others, at work, with strangers, right? And so it's like, it's kind of recognizing, and with it being the night, it's still slightly immature and unrefined energy, right? So there isn't as much maturity or stability as like a queen or king would have, but it's kind of like charging ahead. And so it's like connecting with your confidence and allowing yourself to feel good. Maybe even putting yourself out there, connecting with people, allowing other people to make you feel. It can be a card of receiving attention too, right? And in social settings. And that might be what you need to kind of help you connect with your confidence and your courage, and help you to to kind of lean into that fast moving energy, that fire that just wants to kind of take over. So I think that's really awesome. And it's funny, like you've got so much Wands energy here that it seems like, and the fact that I was picking up on the challenge and the idea of the spark being there, but it's just not quite strong enough, like, and the energy might be a little bit low. And it's like this is kind of like, you've got this, you know, and recognizing that perhaps anything that's keeping you from feeling as though you've got this strength, you've got this energy, you've got this vitality, you've got this confidence, this ability to connect with people, and that you're somebody that people take notice of and that they like and they're drawn to. People want to follow you. It's just perhaps you're not connecting with and believing in and showing up in that energy, because so much of this spark, like this flame, this wand that he's wielding, because so much of that is consumed by this energy of being weighed down by stuff that isn't yours. So it's kind of like letting go of the stuff that's weighing you down that isn't yours, simplifying and making your life easier so you can kind of focus on the things that are most meaningful to you, so that you can connect with this energy, and you can see, you know, what you have to offer. So I think that's really positive. And for it to go hand in hand with chop wood, which is kind of about the boring, mundane things, this is probably why, right? So it's like, if you've got a lot going on, if there's resistance to forward movement and kind of connecting with your passions and letting go of the things that aren't serving you, then perhaps the best thing that's going to help you become aware of all the stuff that's weighing you down and really start to kind of fan your own flames and move forward with that spark of motivation, of inspiration that you've got, is to just simplify things down to the point where it's like you're not distracted, you're not trying to make anything happen, you're not focused on the big goal, and you can get some clarity for yourself, right? So it's almost like just simplifying your life and focusing on those simple, mundane tasks. It's like a form of self-care, because you've got like and it's funny because you're an earth sign and there are all these wands here, which is basically saying like you've got something that inspires you, something that motivates you, something that excites you, and maybe you've just been hesitant to embrace it or prioritize it because you've been kind of dragged down by other stuff, right? So it's like bringing things back into balance by just taking it back to basics. Okay, so for affirmations, it says, I let my intimate relationship be my greatest learning devices for spiritual growth and healing. So it's recognizing, not just intimate, but I think all relationships, because the way that we relate to and interact with people, they basically just reflect ourselves back to us. The things we like and we don't like are areas for healing. So intimate relationships are even more highlighted, obviously, because it's a deeper level of connection. There's more vulnerability. And so it's kind of like a magnified reflection of ourselves. It's more obvious. And intimate relationships are also really beneficial for like personal growth and transformation in that sense. So it's kind of focusing on, you might have some work to do around relationships in general, specifically intimate relationships, previous relationships, if there's anything that you're holding on to from the past or that you're disempowered by, or that's kind of jading you, making you feel jaded. It's recognizing that whatever you think or feel about those past partners or relationships, or how that might portend for your future, it's recognizing that those are just meant to be really wonderful learning opportunities, especially if the relationship wasn't necessarily positive or didn't work out, and just trying to focus on the lesson, and that might help you see like that life is working out for you, right? So this is all about your growth and healing, and so it's about focusing on what you can take from it instead of tying up your energy thinking about the other person, or their role, or how they impacted you. And then your second affirmation says, if I want to feel supported, I must support myself, which is 100%. That is that strong, independent, like fire sign energy too, right? So it's like, if the reason that you're not really taking action on or prioritizing the things that make you feel most inspired and excited about life is because you're focused on all the things that you have to do, and it's just like, or there's not enough support, or you feel like it's just not something you're allowed to do, it's recognizing like you're the one that's making up your mind, and the best thing that you can do is invest in yourself, right? So if you can invest in yourself and the things that are important to you and give yourself permission to experience and include those things in your life, then that's going to come back to you like tenfold, right? So it's kind of like I said, you have to take that spark and you have to fan those flames. And when those flames start getting bigger and things start moving forward, you have to allow yourself the opportunity to benefit from it and see where it'll go. Because if it's connected to your inspiration, like, it will definitely serve you to have those experiences, right? And that's probably going to be something, that could be really fulfilling for you, even if it's just purely on a personal level in terms of a creative thing, and it's not connected to your whole life purpose or career, right? It's like, it could be really beneficial for you. So I've got your last oracle card. It is big picture thinking, Pleiades energy, visionary, inspired ideas. Yeah, and so it's funny because it's like, don't think about the big picture, don't think about the end goal. Not that you don't have it, but it's like, focus on what you're doing day to day and get yourself and your mindset sorted out, right? And so it's kind of interesting because that's what this kind of ties it all together, because this is all about you getting your mindset right, finding how you're overburdening yourself, figuring out how you're resisting change, or you're holding on to things that don't serve you, and allowing yourself to connect to and acknowledge and really become aware of that spark and start to fan the flames for yourself, right? So, okay. Oh, it's funny. I actually opened the guidebook right to this page. This is the Starseed Oracle. I've been warning everybody that it's kind of like esoteric. It's a little bit out there. So some of the stuff is like really kind of beyond me. And then some of the stuff is more practical. So I'd say don't worry if you don't relate to it on a spiritual level. Just take whatever resonates, even, whatever you can kind of connect to, even in a practical sense. So big picture thinking, Pleiades energy, visionary, inspired ideas. And it says, the Pleiadians are our cosmic cousins. They're here to remind us that it's never too late to learn new things and to change the future. You're being called to be a visionary for the planet, to take a breath, shake off what you've been taught about the world and hold a new vision for humanity. You're likely a natural big picture thinker, here to generate ideas for the future, here to birth a new age and dream a new world into being. The future will be woven by dream makers like you, by those with enough courage to question the way things have been and envision new possibilities for the planet. The world needs more artists, dreamers, inventors, and visionary thinkers. Perhaps you've had an idea recently that you're being called to usher in. If so, this card is your confirmation that it's divinely guided. The Pleiadians support us in this important stage in Earth's development. They want us to know that the decisions we make today will affect the well-being of our planet and all its species. They're calling on you to be a leader of the future, to hold a clear vision of what's possible, to trust that vision and follow it with daily action. Follow through with it with daily action, to dream a new world into being, to hold your mind open, and to try not to worry about what others think, for it takes great courage to pave a new path, to trust a vision before it's a reality. And then the inquiry says, how are you being called to step up and lead? Which could be this. What new ideas or creations are you being called to pursue? So I think that's really cool energy for you guys. And it's funny, so it's like Pleiadians and like, ushering in a new age, that kind of stuff. What I would say with that is that you might be really caught up in your day-to-day experiences and your emotions and the challenges that you've got, and so you might not be connecting to the big picture, or you might be underestimating your skills, your presence, your vision and inspiration. Wands are all about vision, inspiration. The wands, court cards, are visionaries, right? They have new ways of approaching things and ways of inspiring people to take action toward a goal. So it's kind of like you might underestimate the ideas that you have, or your ability to affect change, or perhaps the ways that you're holding yourself back, you don't necessarily realize that you have the opportunity to take action in a direction that makes sense to you, and that it's not only going to benefit you, but it can allow you to really make a big difference for others as well, right? So it's kind of like getting out of your personal experiences and being willing to allow yourself to connect with something bigger and something more inspired, and recognizing that might very well have or give you the opportunity to kind of benefit on all levels, right? Because with it being starseed, the idea is that you're not only here to kind of grow and develop your own soul and move toward your own kind of highest good, but also to help others do the same, or to impact others in a positive manner. So yeah, I really like that for you, Capricorn. I'm going to leave your reading here. If you enjoyed this reading, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube and leave a comment. Beyond that, if there's anyone you could think of that would enjoy my readings, you can feel free to share my videos with them. And make sure you check out my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot, and ensure that you're not only subscribed to the channel, but also signed up for notifications, because that will keep you up to date on new readings as they're posted. And if I end up doing kind of like a follow-up later in the month, then you'll want to tune into that as well if you have the time. So yeah, so it's been an absolute pleasure reading for you. I think there's really promising energy for you guys to kind of just like get back into your groove. And I am really rooting for you guys. So I'm excited to read for you in August and to see what comes out, because this is like very promising kind of energy. But yes, until then, I am wishing you all the best. I hope that July is good to you.